The house has watched you for decades. You'll never escape its gaze.
Excerpt from one of the Watcher letters. Sent to 657 Boulevard, Westfield, New Jersey. The sun rises on a quiet street, its old maples casting long, dappled shadows across manicured lawns and stately homes. Westfield, New Jersey is the kind of place you'd expect to be insulated from the world's chaos. It is the epitome of suburban security. Neighbors wave to each other, children play on the sidewalks, and everything seems comfortably predictable in the gentle churn of days and years. But behind one white-bricked six-bedroom Victorian, the thick hedges keep darker secrets. For Derek and Maria Broaddus, buying 657 Boulevard was the beginning of something beautiful. Derek, a successful insurance executive, had grown up nearby and always admired this historic home. Maria, a creative soul and attentive mother, relished the idea of raising their three kids in a place with such character and history. They closed the deal in June 2014 for $1.3 million, a price befitting their dreams and the home's pedigree. It was the perfect step up, a storybook setting for their family, where Maria planned to paint in sunlit rooms and Derek hoped to host summer barbecues on the broad porch. Theirs was not the first family to invest in 657 Boulevard. John and Andrea Woods had lived there for 23 years before selling. There'd been no whispers of trouble, no warning signs. For all Derek and Maria knew, they were joining a lineage of happy, successful residents. They started renovations immediately. Fresh paint for the kitchen, new layout for the master. They moved in furniture, scheduled contractors, sent the kids to explore their new backyard. But before they unpacked, their mailbox became the delivery point for a different story. One evening, as Derek finished some light tasks at the house, replacing old fixtures in the study, a large white envelope appeared in the mailbox. The handwriting on the front was precise but odd, formal and slightly aggressive. Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard. Written in black ink, the strokes seemed eerily deliberate, almost ceremonial. He opened it, expecting welcome notes or utility bills. Instead, Derek found himself reading,
657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched in the 1960s. It is now my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard?
The author went on, detailing renovations happening inside, commenting on the trucks parked in the driveway, referencing the Broaddus children.
I see you have filled the house with young blood, I requested. Better for me. Was your old house too small for your growing family? Once I know their names, I will call to them and draw them to me.
The letter closed on a chilling note.
657 Boulevard is my job, my life, my obsession. Welcome, my friends, welcome. Let the party begin. Signed, The Watcher.
Derek's hand shook as he read. He drove home quickly, the envelope pressed firmly against the steering wheel, trying not to alert Maria. But the fear grew, ratcheting up in him with every repeat read, every scan of the dark living room windows after sunset. When Maria finally saw the letter, her face drained. She clutched at the edges, her thoughts darting between worry and disbelief.
I don't get it.
She said softly.
A neighbor trying to scare us? Or is this real?
They contacted the Woods family, who revealed they too had received a letter, days before they moved out, but theirs had felt benign, almost grateful, asking them simply to take care of the house. They had thrown it away, not thinking much of it. A police officer arrived, took down statements, and began a preliminary investigation. No fingerprints, no way to trace the letter. He advised silence. Don't share the story, especially not with neighbors. Anybody could be a suspect. Despite the anxiety, the Broaddus family pressed on. Renovations continued. Contractors removed old tile, the sound of work echoing through halls that suddenly felt more haunted than historic. Weeks passed. Another letter arrived, this time referencing the children by their actual nicknames and birth order. The watcher wrote,
I see you have visited your new home and decorated the rooms to your liking. I am pleased to know your names now and the name of the young blood you have brought to me. You certainly say their names often.
This letter referenced movements inside, specific actions taken with the kids that week, details that shouldn't be evident from outside. Had the watcher been close? Could they see through the windows, or had they infiltrated the house itself, hiding in some forgotten crawl space invisible as the walls themselves?
That's not a prank.
Maria whispered to Derek that night.
They know too much.
Fear became ritual. Every time Maria visited, alone or with the children, she would scan every window, check each lock, peer down into the dark basement. Neighbors grew suspicious too, noticing the increased police presence. The Broaddus children were never allowed outside unaccompanied. And yet, despite the tension that simmered along the edges of their day, the first real threat was still confined to ink and paper, a riddle with no solution, a watcher who never revealed themselves. Just as the Broadduses began considering pulling out from Westfield, the watcher escalated. This time, the third letter was more menacing, referencing the renovations, including the dumpsters. Have they found what's in the walls yet? It mentioned that the workers were busy, observing the flow of people and actions in excruciating detail. The new message included a particularly chilling question.
Will the young blood play in the basement, or are they too afraid to go down there alone? I would be very afraid if I were them. It is far away from the rest of the house.
Maria, now unable to relax, started keeping the kids away from parts of the house, especially the basement. Derek obsessively reviewed security footage, consulted with the police, and even hired a private investigator. The investigator pored over their neighbors, looking for anyone with a history of similar behavior, or an intimate knowledge of the house. John Schmidt, a neighbor 2 doors down, suggested Derek look into the Langford family, who had lived next door for decades. Particularly, Michael Langford, a man in his 60s known for eccentric, sometimes unsettling behavior, crossing others' lawns, peering into windows. But the investigation hit dead ends. The Langfords were interviewed and denied any involvement. There was no concrete evidence. The watcher's psychological warfare ramped up in more subtle ways. Renovations were repeatedly interfered with, trash bins overturned, light bulbs unscrewed. Some workers reported being watched. Maria started noticing things out of place: a doll missing from a shelf, a ladder left against the side of the house that she hadn't put there. The Broadduses confronted the Woods family again, searching for any link to the past. The Woodses recounted their time in the house, quiet, peaceful, until the final weeks. Was the watcher's presence new, or had they always been there, slumbering until the next young blood arrived? As police increased patrols, neighbors began to whisper. Some suspected the Broadduses themselves. Gossip spread that maybe, in a desperate bid to back out of a burdensome mortgage, they were fabricating the threats. The couple insisted this was not the case, producing the letters as proof. Through the summer and into autumn, the tension reached 2 peaks. The first, during a community block party, Maria tried to interact with locals, hoping to spot any odd behavior or suspicious glances. She watched as families mingled, laughter and children's shouts mingling in the air, her own anxiety tightening in her chest. She caught a neighbor, a cheerful, gray-haired woman, staring at her with unusual intensity as Maria poured a drink. Was this the watcher, or just another person unnerved by strange happenings? The second, A fourth letter arrived, nearly 2.5 years after the first, just 3 weeks after the Broadduses gave a deposition in a legal suit against the Woods family for failing to disclose the Watcher. In this new message, the Watcher grew directly aggressive.
You wonder who the Watcher is? Turn around. Idiots. Maybe you even spoke to me, one of the so-called neighbors who has no idea who the Watcher could be. Or maybe you do know and are too scared to tell anyone. Good move.
This letter referenced their media attention and threatened vengeance. Maybe a car accident, maybe a fire, maybe something as simple as a mild illness that never seems to go away but makes you feel sick day after day after day after day after day. Maria broke down. Derek became sleepless, combing through records, searching for connections in public archives, reviewing court filings and census documents for any overlapping names. The local police brought in a forensic psychologist to analyze the language and handwriting. The profiler deduced the author was likely older, well-educated, and familiar with the area and family habits. What does it mean when the walls of your home become the eyes of your fears? When every creak is not just water pipes or settling beams, but potentially the shoe of a Watcher who never leaves? Meanwhile, the Broaddus children remained mostly unaware, shielded from the worst but increasingly isolated. School drop-offs became a ritual of anxiety for Maria, who sometimes cried alone in her car before driving home. Derek, searching for meaning, started researching local folklore, patterns of home harassment, and other infamous cases like the Circleville Letters of Ohio, where residents received threats for decades from 1976 onward. Yet Westfield had no history as far as official records went. No other house on Boulevard had reported similar letters. Maria asked the Woodses again, and learned that while their own letter arrived in 2014, there had never been correspondence before that. It felt targeted. Out of desperation, the Broadduses put the house up for sale. The case went public, and the Watcher seemed to delight in the exposure. News organizations descended, covering the tale, amplifying both the couple's misfortune and the town's anxiety for months. They tried to demolish and redevelop the property, but the city's zoning board denied their request. Neighbors who had supported the Broadduses then started receiving threatening anonymous letters too, signed, Friends of the Broaddus family. Over time, Derek would admit to sending some anonymous notes himself, fueled by anger at neighbors who doubted or shunned them, but steadfastly denied being the Watcher or authoring any of the original letters. The Watcher, for their part, kept writing. The tension culminated one final time in the winter of 2019 after the Broadduses managed to rent out the home to a new family. The renters, aware of the case, installed extra cameras, accepting the risk but seeking safety and surveillance. 2 weeks after moving in, another white envelope arrived.
You are despised by the house and the Watcher.
It cited the mission to save the soul of 657 Boulevard, congratulating local soldiers for following orders to save the home from the newcomers. Phrases like, "Turn around, idiots," and "Maybe you even spoke to me," repeated from before, a sinister echo of unsolved threats. The Broadduses, at financial and emotional breaking point, sold the home at a $400,000 loss. Their ordeal had cost them their peace, their reputation, and a piece of their future. Who was the Watcher? Was it the Langfords, as some residents theorized? Michael Langford was questioned again and again, yet no evidence ever surfaced, no connection discovered, beyond the mere proximity and strange behavior. Some speculated that Derek himself had become entangled in desperation, lashing out with anonymous letters, a theory fueled by his later confession to writing letters to other neighbors, though he still denied being the Watcher. The theory most police settled on was simple. Whoever wrote the letters was intimately familiar with the rhythms of the house, its history, and the residents. But as months turned to years, the trail grew cold. Westfield as a community changed. The case became local legend, caution to new buyers as a ghost story of sorts, symbolic of the dark flip side of suburban security. The Broadduses eventually moved, but the scars they'd acquired proved harder to shed than the mortgage. Their oldest child developed anxiety. Maria had panic attacks for years. Derek launched investigations into harassment cases, hoping to help others who faced similar threats. Even after new tenants moved in, the legend lingered. The Watcher's last letter, filled with contempt and finality, hung over 657 Boulevard like a curse.
All hail the Watcher,
It finished. No signature, only the remnant chill in the ink. Despite forensic analysis and police review, the Watcher's identity was never discovered. The fear and speculation remained, a collective unease that still ripples through neatly trimmed lawns every time the mailman drops off a letter no one expects. For Westfield, what began as the pursuit of the American dream mutated into a cautionary tale about trust, privacy, and the limits of communal safety. The local police, despite years of effort and forensic analysis, closed the case as unsolved. The neighborhood became known for a time, less for its beauty than for its story. A legend that became a Netflix series and a national metaphor for silent threats lurking beneath ordinary lives. The Broadduses eventually recovered, with therapy and time. Their children grew, choosing discretion and privacy above openness. So, viewers, the moral question lingers. What do we owe to those we call neighbors? Is true safety ever possible when our sense of community can be so easily shattered by words and silence? Would you move into your dream home, knowing a watcher might already be waiting? Don't forget to subscribe to Real Mystery Reports for more strange, dark, and profoundly human stories. New true mysteries every day.